This is the Mount Rushmore podcast. My name is Jeff, and I'm joined, as per the usual, by my good friends Richard.
Hello.
And Michael.
Howdy.
Richard and Michael, they like to debate and deliberate the most ubiquitous of any given topic, and this week's topic is the Mount Rushmore of songs that were made better by a guest musician. Who thought of this topic?
Why, I believe it was you, Jeff.
It was.
Can you make all statements that you make like as a question of whether you made them or not?
Who's very well dressed today? Why, Jeff, you are in your ascot and velveteen pants. Well, I will say I have chosen this topic not because I have a bunch of strong opinions on it, but because I was speaking with J.B. Anderton, who has the Bat 77 podcast, and he said, I'm a big fan of your music episodes of your podcast.
Oh. Really?
And I would say I'm a big fan of our music episodes, and it's not because I'm the most informed music lover.
And Jesus, not like we are either.
Well, you guys, if you aren't informed, you have interesting opinions, and I wanted to hear your opinions on this topic. So
I only know 10 bands. That's why I talk about the replacements a lot.
The placemats, the Mats podcast, and the Curecast, as Michael Winfield's. Well, why not go for it? And I want to hear your opinions, and I'm going to pick Richard because I just am digging your beard.
It's a pretty good beard.
It's really
nice beard.
growing out.
It's coming along nice.
Yeah.
No offense, Michael.
Movember has turned into
yours,
beard.
Michael
December.
keeps his a little bit more trim and high and tight. Mm-hmm. I got a little bit more of the mountain man thing going on. It's all good. So my first choice, this is one that we talked about before we were recording off air, was Eric Clapton playing on while my guitar gently weeps.
Also my list.
It was pretty much the slam dunk
Yeah.
one, I think, out of all the categories, or all the possible choices in this category. Great guitar solo, very instantly recognizable as Clapton. And something where he had to be sort of talked into coming into the studio, apparently, just because, it's intimidating to go in the studio with the Beatles.
Yeah.
And he didn't know if the rest of the Beatles would even want him there.
Oh.
It was something where George Harrison basically invited
He had a
him.
friendship with him
Before
like,
that,
kind of.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Previous to that, and Harrison's like, why don't you come in and, I think you would be perfect to play a solo on this one song that I've been working on.
Yeah.
And Clapton at first was like, I don't want to go in because I don't know if the other guys, the other Beatles are going to want me in there. Is it going to disrupt any vibe? Of course, it was during the recording of the White Album, so the vibe was we all kind of hate each other at that point.
Yeah.
So it was kind of hard to disturb that vibe.
Yeah.
And it actually turned out that having Clapton in the studio kind of got everyone on their best behavior.
Oh, okay.
Were they really respective of, did they respect him as a musician? Is that why it's like, oh?
I think it's partially that. I think it was also partially just, if you have a guest over for Thanksgiving dinner, seeing as though we're just wrapping up Thanksgiving right now as we're recording this, your family kind of tries to put on their best behavior, even though if they've been fighting like cats and dogs leading up to that. And that's something that happened with the Beatles frequently whenever they would have a guest. They didn't have a ton of guest musicians in there. But I know the same thing happened with Billy Preston when he was in the studio, that they basically, everyone got into a much better mood and got more collaborative and got along much better with each other.
One thing I thought was interesting was, you mentioned Billy Preston. He at least got credit for working with the Beatles.
Right.
It seemed that Clapton wasn't noted in the liner notes. And I wonder if this was just around the time of the Wrecking Crew would just play all the music for a particular artist.
Right.
Do all the stuff, in studio. And I wonder how much people paid attention to that. But it's weird to think of someone that has become such a, guitar legend as Clapton, and then he's just not credited on there. They don't mention it until you have to dig it up later or find out later. And
Right.
you see it on the Beatles anthology or whatever it was.
Right.
Also strange that this was George Harrison's song, and then it was like, oh yeah, bring in the other guy to play over me.
Yeah.
Right. That takes a lot of got to be humble
Jeff
to be able to let not just anyone but freaking Eric Clapton.
There's that joke about Ringo not being the best rock drummer
Not
in
only
the
that,
world.
but not even the best drummer in his band.
And I would say this Jeff Emmerich book, Emmerich being a recording engineer at Apple, although not the producer of the Beatles albums as George Martin was.
He was the engineer for those albums.
He was the engineer. So he grew up with the Beatles. He'd be the guy who mic'd up the instruments at the very beginning in the early records, but then later on, when he recorded with Paul for Band on the Run or something like that, he would actually be the engineer or the producer. But he said George Harrison was hardly on par with an Eric Clapton,
right,
from a guitar standpoint. And there were times when Paul would have to show George some stuff on the guitar.
Well, and like Paul, I think we discussed this, played guitar on Taxman.
Oh, he
That's
did.
his lead.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Which is one of the best lead guitar parts in any Beatles song.
Oh, the
the guitar solo at the end, and it gets very kind of like metalish almost.
Yeah.
That's McCartney.
And is this also a little bit of couples therapy? For them to...
Yeah, I think there was an element of that for sure.
Because Harrison had shagged Patty Boyd or something. Oh, sorry.
I think that was after that.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with the. I
that's
don't know
right.
the timeline.
That's Octopus's Garden.
I do appreciate that you reverted back to a
Shagged.
British slang for that. Yes.
Yeah, baby.
Kept it all in universe continuity.
Yeah, baby.
The Marvel editor puts a little box at the bottom of whatever you said with an asterisk, like, this is what the Londoners said in the 1960s. True believer.
I am eating fish and chips as we speak. I think it was Octopus's Garden. Was that where I think Harrison or somebody was referring to Eric Clapton, his neighbor Eric Clapton, as being the octopus.
Oh, really?
Who'd wrapped all his arms around his wife Patty Boyd.
Goo Chew.
Yeah. So and I think Patty Boyd has more than a few songs written about her too. But okay, so cool. So that was yours also.
Yeah.
Michael. Okay, so Michael, what is your second?
My second choice is Dave Grohl playing on the song No One Knows by Queens of the Stone Age, although he also played on the entire album of Songs for the Deaf.
Right, and isn't he also in, what's the other spinoff? Don't they have like a spinoff band of
Eagles?
Queens?
They're not Eagles.
No, Eagles death metal.
Yeah, that I don't know, but maybe.
Okay.
You're probably right.
Dave Grohl on what is it?
Dave Grohl of the Foo Fighters.
Yeah.
Of Nirvana, playing drums on "No One Knows" by Queens of the Stone Age. And what I thought, one, I really like this song. I think it kind of has this slow, kind of prodding, kind of guitar part that kind of leads into this really big drum part, in which I think kind of saves the song, where like the vocals really kick in, and then just this guitar, the drums by Dave Grohl really just kind of rock out and just kind of take over the song and make it a much better song. Yeah. And it was around the time that he was like friends with the lead singer, Josh Homme, from like 96 or something. He'd known him, 92 even. He'd known him for a long time and kind of admired his work. And, he went off after Nirvana ended and to do Foo Fighters. And he was kind of getting worn out on doing the Foo Fighters thing. And he was just kind of wanted to get back into doing drumming, which he was kind of made his bones at initially. So I think it was a good collaboration working with them for a full album, but specifically this one song I think is just the best thing that they've done. And I think it just, him as a drummer, I think brings a lot of like gravitas to this band. Yeah. And I think kind of push them forward a little bit.
And we really could have done a Mount Rushmore of Dave Grohl guest cameos.
Really could. Yeah. I thought of putting his work with Tenacious D.
Right.
Or just right on down the line. While I was looking for more information about Dave Grohl.
You can find it on the internet, by the way.
That's where I looked.
Okay,
well,
good.
I started with
good.
microfiche.
Yeah.
As we've all been trained to do.
Right.
I got those newspapers. They're all just on those
from the library, yeah.
On those
you
rods.
Approach
the
scariest woman in the school. Talk to her in your nervous voice.
But he does a ton of guest appearances, especially with live acts. A few years ago, he was touring with Cat Power, and that's why the fuck are you playing with Cat Power? I mean, Cat Power barely plays.
Right.
She's such a mess. But he has a few weeks ago, God, maybe it's a few months ago, we were talking about like Keanu Reeves as like just the
The
everybody
Keanu
loves him.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dave Grohl is just what seems like one of those guys
On
that
par, yeah.
wants to play with everyone. Everyone wants to play with him. He did that really good like HBO kind of quasi documentary series about making like a new Foo Fighters album where he worked with all these different, speaking of guest people, all these people were like guesting on a Foo Fighters album or would record in a specific city. The music was kind of bad, but like the making of it,
He did a Sound City doc about
Fantastic,
that
yeah.
console at Sound City.
working with like Ben Gibbard on something in Seattle and working with people down in St. Louis and
I think he worked with Rick Nielsen from Cheap Trick.
yeah, just all over.
Random people, yeah.
I think that he's like one of those Venn diagrams of like, oh, who would you want to work with? Oh, Dave Grohl, because he's awesome, good guitarist, good drummer. Mm-hmm. He's got just like bona fides at the wazoo. He played with Wazoo. Wazoo Palooza. I don't know.
You know what's funny? That there's something oddly connected there. I think of Kurt Cobain as kind of the James Dean of grunge or rock, and he died early enough to not become corrupted by all the things that fame does to older celebrities. And I feel like Dave Grohl, it's almost like he learned from that somehow and has kept. It's almost like he's rocking for two now. You know, like he's kept that innocence. Or
he definitely picked up the pieces right away. He didn't stay mired in being part of this legacy of sadness.
Yeah,
he was like, I'm still a musician. You know, one of my best friends died, but I got to move on. I still got to go do these own things. And he's an interesting character.
Yeah. Cool choice. All right, Richard, you, and then halftime after.
All right, so my second choice is someone that we have discussed on the show before as
I am not surprised
for having played guested on multiple parts. Maybe has as much bona fides as Holly Hunter would have said in "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" for playing with other musicians as Dave Grohl, Johnny Marr.
Oh, love it.
And specifically his playing on the Talking Heads song "Nothing But Flowers."
Okay.
Which I did not realize was Johnny Marr playing guitar until I was doing some research for this episode. Do love that song, so it's off their album Naked, and never realized it was Johnny Marr. But apparently he played on like 4 songs on that the last Talking Heads album. And that was the first one that he recorded with them, and he flew out to Paris. It was right after the Smiths broke up, so this was 88, 89, something like that.
Yeah, they were done. Their last album came out in 87, I think.
Yeah, so it was like a year or two. It was like a year or two after
the first Morrissey album came out in 88. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a little bit after they broke up, but you know, he was just kind of enjoying being a gun for hire at this point. And didn't have a connection to the Talking Heads. It wasn't like, oh, he was friends with David Byrne, so he asked him. No, it was just like one of those, hey, I like your playing. You know, you want to come down to Paris? We're recording a new album. Sure, sounds good. And this was the first track that he worked on with him. And apparently it was nothing more than the bass line and the drum, like a drum loop. Like there were no chord changes. And Steve Lillywhite, who was the producer of the album, basically said, just do whatever you want to with it. Which Johnny Marr said was as intimidating as hell, because you're coming into this new situation with this great band. You know, and David Byrne kind of has this reputation for being this kind of quirky auteur. And suddenly you're asked to just sort of just do whatever you want. So he said, well, can I do some chord changes? Oh, yeah, sure, do that. So he wound up basically creating the song almost from scratch just so he could record the guitar part for it. Or at least creating the chord change. I know you don't understand what chords are, Michael.
My eyes glazed over. I started looking up towards the heavens, just praying for an early death.
If your laptop has that light that pop up that says you got to plug this in,
that's a chord change.
You need a chord change.
Thanks, guys.
But you know, and Michael, you're more of the Smiths expert than I am.
Sure.
And this song, at first glance, if you guys know the song "Nothing But Flowers," it's got this sort of like Afrobeat kind of rhythm to it, which I wouldn't necessarily have associated with Johnny Marr. But then I started thinking about some of the Smiths songs that kind of almost have some like a Caribbean or Afrobeat kind of feel to it. So I guess it made more sense once I thought about it why he would sort of gravitate to a song like that and be a good fit for it. But I think just we've discussed, I know, the history of him playing with a lot of different bands.
Well, one of the strangest Johnny Marr things was 2007 he joined Modest Mouse.
Right.
Yeah.
And for We Were Dead Before the Ship Even Sank, and I remember being like, why the fuck is Johnny Marr with Modest Mouse? And like there was a lot of his like guitar jangly bits throughout that album, and it was an interesting album and it worked. He was only with them for like one album and a couple of tours or whatever. But I don't know if he necessarily improved it. He was just added. Modest Mouse in particular is a band that has just a lot of layers.
Yeah.
Like there's just a lot of guitar work. There's a lot of drums. There's a lot of everything. There's a lot of not being able to understand what Isaac Brock is saying because he tries to cram all of his lyrics into the song.
Right.
It's very interesting to listen to. It's like I don't know what he writes first. If he writes the music and then crams the lyrics in, or writes all these lyrics and then is like
I'm sure he writes the chords first, Michael.
No idea. But it was very strange to have like two of my favorite things combine.
Was it kind of like
Voltron into this weird thing that was like, okay. And then he left and I was like, sure.
It wasn't quite like peanut butter and chocolate.
Yeah.
It was like two things that you really love and kind of, it worked, but...
I don't need it for forever.
Right.
You got it for an album.
Yeah, and that's the same thing with Talking Heads. You got an album, 4 songs worth of Johnny Marr. Like the song I was thinking of from the Smiths was Ask. Like that's a song that's kind of, I think of it as having some sort of world music sort of feel to it, even if it's not overt. I think his playing, you can see where you can make a connection between that and, the later Talking Heads when David Byrne was really getting into world music.
God, David Byrne I'm surprised he wasn't on my list at all.
No.
As like a weird, he's had a lot of weird people that he's worked with.
St.
People that
Vincent.
worked him. That St. Vincent album.
Kirsty MacColl also sang on that Nothing But Flowers.
Also sang because Steve Lily White was the producer, and that's when she was married to him.
Oh.
I do find it interesting, though, this is as a pick, as someone who fundamentally changed what the song was going to be into a song with... I don't know if any of my picks did that. If they changed the song, in that sort of way that a guitarist and a musician comes in and is like, well...
It's not just playing a solo
Yes.
to like a set song. It is literally changing the structure of the song or helping define what that structure is. So I found that part fascinating.
Jen, my wife, was asking us about this topic, and she mentioned kind of celebrity hip-hop producers and how they frequently have guests on. And I think of this topic as it being important that is a guest recording with a band, a group of people that have spent a lot of time together, had previous recordings together, that are essentially this small family, and that there's nobody who's really an outsider in a P. Diddy recording because he's the only insider. He's the only person who's probably the mainstay of it.
Right.
Maybe there's an entourage, but...
Well, I'm going to go back to the Modest
not a
Mouse
band.
thing real quick, but just weird that like Johnny Marr just joined the band.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like, I'm going to play on this album. He was just like, oh yeah, he's in the band now.
Yeah.
And you're just like, what? Okay.
Yeah.
This guy's...
Seems like Superman joining the Avengers or something. Or does it seem like he outranks them?
a little bit.
Yeah.
Like has had so much more experience, or maybe even not even, a decade more, but a decade more is a lifetime in rock and roll.
Yeah. Okay, dudes, we're at halftime. I want to invite you to tune in to our next episode, which is the Mount Rushmore of exploitation films.
Jeff on the hot seat. This is the best time of year for us. It's Christmas time, but it's grilling time.
It's Christmas for us, really. is what it
We'll
is.
all shift one mic to the left, and I'll be in the participant microphone and not in the judge microphone. But it's exciting for me to participate in that. But that's something to look forward to in the next episode. So if you haven't already, go back and get the link for this podcast wherever you find it. Share it on social media with your friends. we would ask you to give us the gift of sharing in this season of giving and stuff like that.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Please help us.
Don't buy gifts for people.
Yeah, don't guys.
Just do something for us.
Give them Rushmore to people.
Oh my God! Can you imagine getting that in your stocking? Here,
Ew.
a download of the Mount Rushmore
God.
podcast.
I got you a Tiffany, like a tennis bracelet.
It
Oh.
wasn't that bad this year.
That is, we are your lump of coal.
You can do that for us. That'd be solid. But you could even go one better and review and rate previous episodes. That'd be super cool. Probably a lot of driving in your future with going over the river and through the woods to grandmother's house and all that kind of stuff. This is a great podcast to listen to when you do that. I think it's time to go back to the topic, and then Michael would be letting us know his third choice.
Well, your wife Jen was very prescient on one of my choices.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Which is Ludacris
Oh, wow.
singing on Missy Elliott's "Gossip Folks" from the 2002 album Under Construction.
Okay.
And one of those things that she talked about, she was like, "Oh yeah, like nowadays every rap song has a guest vocal that comes in." But I love the way on this song in particular, this song is kind of like this response to. It's Missy Elliott singing about, like, people talking about her.
Yeah.
Talking about, like, who she's sleeping with, all the drugs she's doing, all this stuff. And then the song just kind of plods on a little bit. I love the song, and it's really fun. And then right near the end, right before the song kind of ends itself, Ludacris bangs through the door and just sings this really super great, braggadocious, all about me bit about how he stepped on the scene and he smells great and he's banging all these chicks and he just feels great, and he pulled himself up by his own
Rap straps.
rap straps, yeah, and just like he's on the scene and isn't he great, and he's awesome, and it's just I love it because it is a breath of fresh air in a song that is already fun but doesn't really feel like it's going anywhere. It just kind of comes in. And Ludacris is just this really super loud personality.
Yeah.
And one of the most ridiculous things is that he drops a reference and an impression of Timmy from South Park. He's like, I'm loud like Timmy. And it's just so weird to be like,
You need Timmy.
it's as if you're going to do like a Bartman thing, or like, I don't know, a reference to SpongeBob SquarePants. It's so strange and wonderful.
Like,
and
where
just,
does it come from? Where did that happen? Yeah, what happened there?
I don't know, South Park and all that, exploded in 1997, 98, 99, and it was weird to have this new Simpsons-like cartoon that was taking over everything, especially Hot Topic T-shirt sales. But, a couple years later to have a Timmy reference in a Missy Elliott song by Ludacris is just nesting doll of.
Would you say it was ludicrous to have it?
Ludacris.
Very ludicrous.
All right,
Yeah,
Winfield.
I just love that.
Yes.
Richard, what is your third choice of musicians who improved a song by guesting on the thing?
And you mentioned Kirsty MacColl
Yeah.
a few minutes ago,
Yeah.
which is prescient on your part.
Oh.
Because my next choice is Kirsty MacColl singing co-lead vocals on the Pogues song "Fairytale of New York."
Oh, fun.
Just a great song. Kirsty MacColl, just a great singer, just an incredible voice. As mentioned, was married to producer Steve Lillywhite at the time, who was producing the Pogues album. And the story goes that they were working on this song, and he needed a temp vocal for whoever was going to be the female vocalist who was going to do that part. Wasn't originally supposed to be her, but they're in the studio, in the home studio, and he has her record this temporary vocal track, and they liked it so much that was literally the vocal track that they just wound up using.
Wow.
So they were never in the studio really together, which I found really fascinating. But it between her and Shane MacGowan, you've got her with this very beautiful Irish voice, and then you've got Shane MacGowan, who does not have a beautiful definitely has an Irish voice. Wouldn't say it's a beautiful Irish voice. But I don't know that if you didn't have that contrast between the two, that the song wouldn't have worked I don't know that it works for anyone other than her.
Yeah.
As the co-lead singer. So to your original, guest musicians who made the song better, this is one where I think clearly Kirsty MacColl coming in elevated the song from something that would have been a very good Pogues song to an all-time, Christmas classic.
I think Kate Pierson seemed to do that a few times in the 80s. And
sure, like with Candy by Iggy Pop.
Yeah, and then some R.E.M.
Shiny Happy People.
Wasn't, did Belinda Carlisle do that a couple times?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Kind of the rose among the briar.
Right.
The beauty among the beastly songs. That's a cool choice. She also, I feel like she has a little bit of the tragedy among her as somebody who died
young. Yeah.
Died young. And then died
hit by a boat.
Hit by a boat, defending her children or trying to get her children out of the way.
Her children out of the way of this Spanish billionaire who was on his yacht and was traveling too fast and plowed into them. He wound up not getting any jail time. However, in England there's still a big justice for Kirsty kind of movement.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's still something that is a thing today.
Yeah, cool choice. All right, Winfield.
Well, very strange that you guys mentioned Shiny Happy People.
Oh, really?
Because mine is Kate Pierson from the B-52s, guesting on R.E.M's Shiny Happy People, which is a delightful, way too positive, happy song on the same album that has Losing My Religion.
Yeah.
Right. From 91's Out of Time, which oddly featured, I think, the worst... an example of a musician making a song worse.
I know this one.
Yes.
Is it Radio Song?
Yes, it's KRS-One.
Oh yeah,
with the rap on Radio Song.
Ooh, it's a rough one.
It's just
a rough listen.
It's a bad song to start the album with, and it's a bad guest rap. Talk about a good to go from a. I know we're talking about Kate Pierson now, but to go from Ludacris to KRS-One, and it's just awful. It's so hokey and silly and terrible.
Yeah.
But Shiny Happy People, I think, is so much improved by this bouncy, joyous, affirming call and response sort of song. And the thing that she brings is just this lovely voice. And it's so big compared to, what's his name?
Michael Stipe.
Thank you, Michael Stipe. Where he's got a good voice, but it's so low key, and she just comes in and just love them, and it's just so wonderful.
Yeah.
And they have a relationship in that they're both from the same town.
Yeah,
and they've probably spent a lot of time together.
Yeah, playing in Athens College yard party somewhere. Or something.
Yeah, but she just adds so much to the song that it's just this super bubblegum pop. We mentioned the Archie. I don't remember if we were recording.
I don't think we were, but
we were talking about the Archies and Sugar Sugar.
Yeah,
and it's just this joyous, bouncy song, and she is just a joyous, bouncy personality.
Yeah, what a place for them to meet. I think of the two freak shows who came from Athens who found their way out of whatever genre they're in into alternative radio, then to actual pop charts, the mainstream charts, and to be recording what may be the most sarcastic song. I don't know if that I can't imagine there isn't a little bit of sardonicness into the shiny happy people.
Well, reading an interview with Michael Stipe, he it was more like a challenge. Can I write this kind of sappy,
overly positive type of song?
Yeah, and
the best thing about this song is that it gave us a Kate Pierson Muppet.
Did it really?
Yeah, they did when Michael Stipe guested on Sesame Street. There is a Kate Pierson Muppet that sings along with him to Shiny Happy Monsters.
Oh, okay.
Which is fantastic.
She also was on a couple of other songs on there, but check out Me and Honey too, which is another super...
Which is a very good song.
Yeah. Shiny Happy People isn't a bad song. It's just literally very syrupy.
Right. Yeah. Like Honey?
Like Honey.
Ooh.
Okay, Ricardo, your final choice.
So it's interesting. You just mentioned Bootsy Collins. Oh wait, hold on a second. Can you rewind that? Did anyone mention Bootsy Collins?
No.
Can we insert that in post? Because it really would have flowed really well if we could do that.
Yeah.
No, Bootsy Collins, along with Maceo Parker and Q-Tip from Tribe Called Quest and Fred Wesley also as well on trombone, on the Dee-Lite song "Groove Is in the Heart."
Wow. Yeah.
I was someone who was familiar with Bootsy Collins through Parliament Funkadelic when I was growing up. So this song is probably about 89, something like that, 89, 90. And that's when I was really getting into bass. And that's when I really started getting into funk bass. And so Bootsy Collins is one of the people I really listened to. It was like a hero of mine as a bass player. And to have him on this, like, you know, this dance pop kind of, you know, dance club type song was at once discombobulating, but then also at the same time, it totally made sense.
Yeah.
And the song is really driven by this bass line. And you've got Maceo Parker, who played with saxophone player, and Fred Wesley, who is a trombone player for the James Brown band.
Yeah. They were the JVs.
Or
the Fabulous Flames.
I think they were Fabulous Flames. Maceo Parker might have been both. And Bootsy Collins actually played in James Brown's backing band at one point as well. So it really gave this song sort of the funk credentials, the bona fides, as we would say.
Yeah.
And Bootsy's got a little bit of a speaking part in the middle of it.
I feel like the entire Pee-wee's Playhouse is just going to erupt saying, yeah!
Secret word today is
The
bona
secret is bona
fides. It was just, man, what a fun time in music.
Yeah.
When an act like Dee-Lite could become like household names for a brief period in time. And it was this like kind of it was back when it was like this whole 60s funhouse of, you know, mix of genres and looks and styles.
Yeah.
And so having this like 60s, early 70s kind of vibe, then having someone like Bootsy Collins be a part of it, who was the epitome of kind of 70s cool.
Yeah.
Just made sense.
Oh, yeah. I think of Dee-Lite as almost being cut from the same cloth as the B-52s. And they were the thrift store welcome wagon for any freaks who wanted to hang out and have fun. And
I believe you're referring to the Love Shack.
The Love Shack.
Yes.
You'll just see the faded sign on the side of the road. How far are you away? It's like 15 miles.
15
I
miles.
guess a few. But dance music as a meritocracy. If it moves you and grooves you, it doesn't matter if you're a celebrity or just a backup guy for a fading act.
Right.
You got a place in that world. And I think the New York music scene that Blondie was in at the same time, the Talking Heads, at the same time, Fab Five Freddy, at the same time, all these guys was a meritocracy. Let's say anybody who does something funky and groovy.
No, I think it very much it came up at the same club scene that like Madonna was exploring like during the Vogue era.
Yeah.
But this was like a different side of that.
Yeah. It was a DJ Toa Toa, and I forget the other guy.
Dimitri. Who was married to a lady Miss Kira.
Oh, really?
At the time.
Oh, I didn't know.
So
that.
you had like this like you know, nightclub girl. You had this Russian guy DJ, and then this like Japanese DJ. It was like this weird mix of people.
I can see them saying
The United Nations decided to make a band. Let's build it around like 70s funk. Okay. We need Representative Bootsy Collins to come in here.
who's going to play bass on this track, y'all? Let's get the Bootsy. Okay, let's get Bootsy.
What's Bootsy doing?
What is Bootsy? I love that you named, you know, the fact that he's also talking like, y'all are crazy. There's a couple times in the...
he just sort of throws these little Bootsy-isms in there. And I would be remiss to not point out, not just talk about Bootsy Collins, but also Q-Tip from Tribe Called Quest does the little rap version in the middle of the little rap bit in the middle of the song, which I think is a really fun kind of like rap. And he did a lot of like guest raps on a lot of other people's stuff. So I would be remiss not to mention him.
That is in, I think, my first... order fill out for the Columbia Record Club.
I was just thinking that too.
Was Dee-Lite Grooves in the Heart and 3 Feet High and Rising, probably the first CD order.
It's funny. Those are like, I have no experience of Dee-Lite other than that song.
Yeah.
Nobody does.
I do not know a single thing that
Try me on, I'm very you. There's some good songs.
They were the American Pizzicato 5. There's a deep cut for everybody.
Okay.
But
Sure,
yeah.
Twiggy.
Exactly. They were like the
Pizzicato
American
5.
version of that.
Yeah.
But I guess to wrap everything up, for me, I remember this may be one of the first times where it felt okay to like something that was like very blatantly dance and pop.
Yeah.
Being growing up, because Bootsy Collins was involved.
Yeah.
And if Bootsy was cool with it, it was okay to be cool with it too.
I remember reading Bootsy started with James Brown when he was 15, but that was before I read that James Brown had fired his entire band on tour. And
because they dropped, and they probably missed a beat or something. Yeah,
so he needed a band really quick, so he hired a bunch of 15-year-olds. So okay, all right. That's how you get some opportunity. Okay, that's it. That's it. All right, so some fun picks.
I'd like to point out this episode where we were talking about guests making the thing better.
Yeah,
did not have a guest.
It didn't have a guest.
We really bricked this
yeah.
opportunity, guys.
We should have gotten Ryan Love on at least. I do want to name a person who feels like they're a guest because I've been told they listen to our podcast, and that is thank you, Gina Neugebauer. Gina Neugebauer, who works with my sister-in-law, Jackie Newcomb, at Harvard or Yale. Harvard? Which is the one that Goodwill Hunting went to?
We're in the Ivy
Harvard.
Leagues, guys.
Harvard. Hi, Gina. How are you doing? And now I'm going to go pick some songs, just because it kind of opened up a big can there. Let's go with "Shiny Happy People," featuring a guest song or singer Kate Pierson. I didn't know Johnny Marr played on Nothing But Flowers, and now I got to go learn about that. You both mentioned it, so While My Guitar Gently Weeps seems like it would be important to do. And then, let's see, what was the fun other one? Just because he's got so much cred, and this will make us go up in the ratings. Dave Grohl, No One Knows.
Literally, if just the people that Dave Grohl has played with and collaborated with listen to this podcast. Just the musicians.
Yeah.
We'll triple our listenership. Yeah.
Okay. Just saying Dave Grohl, I think, will bump us up.
A little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. That's how SEO works.
That's it. You speak it, you raise in clicks. This has been the Mount Rushmore of musicians who guested on a podcast and made the... No. This has been the Mount Rushmore of...
Oh, man. You almost stuck the
You
landing.
had it.
Bella is over there just pulling his hair out.
Gary, you can do it.
Oh, man. This has been the Mount Rushmore of the thing that we just did. My name's Jeff.
I'm Richard.
I'm Michael.